Let's start out there in Columbus, Ohio. Get locked in at Letterman Row. The Ohio State On3 site, that entire team over there is crushing the coverage. The overwhelming narrative right now, the overwhelming theme in Columbus is when you watch this team, even in helmets, this might be the most first team, all off the bus kind of squad. Like, you look at a couple of these guys, especially some of the transfers, Quinshawn Judkins, Caleb Downs, both individuals coming from the SEC, and they said it just looks like a different football team physically. Now, you're going to hear that said a lot across the country this time of year. Oh, hey, they look bigger. Yeah, because everyone's been in the weight room for the entirety of the winter working their tail off, putting on pounds, so they don't lose all that weight when it comes to the season, getting ready for spring football. But I think there's something to be said here for those two individuals because they come from different places. They come from different parts of the country, and they're now at Ohio State. Think about Ohio State now. The last couple of seasons, they've been really good. Last year's kind of the exception to their standard of the level they expect to play at. But the year before, ran into Georgia in the college football playoff. You saw them play Missouri in the Cotton Bowl, and they weren't, the fullest power level they were previously at with, the opt-outs they had in that game, most notably Marvin Harrison Jr. But what I'm trying to say here is that's a good sign if you're an Ohio State fan. Hearing that your team looks physically different, that's the edge that you're going to have when it comes to this 12-team playoff. Jeremiah Smith, it's so early on, but we're going to critique and analyze every single thing about him to this point in his college career, which is, of course, all of 2 practices right now. He was the number 1 player in 2024. He's 6'3", 215. The reports are he looks like an action figure. And Denzel Burke, per the folks at Letterman Row, say he is one of the most outspoken guys on the team. Of course, I'm speaking of Denzel Burke, who is big-time corner for them. So the thought there is, hey, you talk to Denzel Burke, you have a pretty good pulse as to what's going on within the team and within, the roster as a whole. And they asked Denzel Burke what he thinks about Jeremiah Smith during the bowl practice, before Jeremiah Smith got there. They said, you know what? I'm going to have to see. I respect the hype. I respect, the accolades he comes here with, but he's going to have to show me that he is that dude. And they asked him again during fall camp. Again, mind you, we're a couple of winter conditioning sessions and I think 2 spring practices in for Ohio State at this point. And Denzel Burke's like, I don't want to, give him an unattainable title at this point in his college career as he's a freshman, but he should be the next great wide receiver at Ohio State. So if Denzel Burke is saying it, there's some real truth to it. Will Howard, transfer quarterback from Kansas State, ton of excitement around him. The expectation for me, and I'd have to believe a lot of folks in Columbus, is he's going to start at quarterback for you. I don't think you transfer from Kansas State to a place like Ohio State if you don't wholeheartedly believe that. The report right now is, after a few practices, he's still getting up to speed. He's still kind of finding his footing. Now, if you're an Ohio State fan, you're saying, oh boy, did we miss? Did we miss on getting our transfer quarterback? Nobody missed. Remember now, this is kind of how it was with Sam Hartman at Notre Dame, too, really until that spring game where he really separated himself and sort of dropped the mic that he was your guy at Notre Dame. So for Will Howard, there's an acclimation period. You would expect that. It's a new offense. It's a new place. It's a new system. Like, give it some time for Will Howard. We'll keep a pulse of what's going on there for him and for the rest of his status there in Columbus. Last thing here, I'm always curious when we talk to folks close to the program, like, hey, what's the temperature during spring practice? And when I say temperature, I mean, like, what's the buzz? What's the feel? Is there a certain edge to this team? Is there a certain vibe around this team during the first couple of practices? Because you can't really make a diagnosis during spring. You can't make definitive statements necessarily off of a couple of practices, but you can get a pretty good gauge for the atmosphere. And the atmosphere is, this is a team that understands how much talent they have on the roster. This is a team that understands what they should accomplish. Going back to Denzel Burke now, the truth serum of the Ohio State Buckeye football team, he said, natty or bust. Now, I don't know if you want your all-star corner saying that, but he said it. I think everyone in that team, whether they were going to say it out loud or not, understands that. That's Ohio State for you. Again, all the coverage at Letterman Row. Get locked in over there. Hey, y'all, thanks so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel here to make sure you don't miss an episode of The Hard Count. Also, be sure to check out other videos on the On3 YouTube channel.